750 here, Big 550 KTRS. Our next guest is the director of the Center on Chinese Strategy at the Hudson Institute. He has served in presidential administrations from Richard Nixon to President Obama. Educated at Stanford, we won't hold that against him, as well as Columbia University. He's out with a new book. Michael Pillsbury, welcome to the show. The book is called The 100-Year Marathon, China's Secret Strategy to Replace America as the Global Superpower. Good morning, Michael Pillsbury. Michael Pillsbury, are you there?
Morning. I hope you buy my book, The 100-Year Marathon.
You gotcha. Not only are you an expert when it comes to foreign policy, but you're a very good capitalist. We like to see that. The book is The 100-Year Marathon, China's Secret Strategy to Replace America as the Global Superpower. When did you realize this was China's ultimate plan?
Well, not for the first 20 years. It was in plain sight, but we only recently actually got some Mao Zedong, Chairman Mao quotations back in the 1950s, where he said we need 75 years to pass the Americans, but we have to do it. It'll be our greatest contribution. And they're way ahead of schedule. They were going to pass this in 2030. Now the World Bank just announced they passed this 2 months ago. So they're 15
in what?
years.
Passes in what?
Total GDP.
I thought our economy was like infinitely larger than theirs.
No, they have passed us.
Was that a news story I missed?
Yes, Financial Times had it on the front page. The Chinese are very shy about it. They're saying, well, we're still behind in per capita because there's 1.3 billion Chinese and only 300 million Americans, so don't bother your pretty little head about it. They don't want us to get alert and start becoming more competitive. They're growing 3 or 4 times faster than us every year. So by 2030, they say they'll be double us. And by the end of what I call the 100-Year Marathon, from a Chinese book about it, they say they'll be triple our economy.
The criticism of China's economy is that they're building cities and towns and skyscrapers in which no one's living in.
That's right. They take reporters out to cover that. They don't cover the other part of the story, which is far more important. They've got 150 billionaires. They've got 90 of the top 500 corporations in the world. Their growth rate in various market shares is just extraordinary. They found a winning formula to how to grow 3 times faster, and it's working.
What's the formula?
The formula is to pick what they call the national champions, huge corporations that they aid with technology and low rates of interest, at the same time to restrict American companies and other foreign companies in China from operating successfully.
So China picks winners and losers?
Successfully, yes.
Well, first of all, what's so terrible about China growing larger than the U.S.? I mean, we always like to be first, but what's the big deal?
Well, a lot of Americans are for it. There's a lot of Americans who say, well, we've made mistakes over the last 50 to 100 years. It's time to give China a chance. I think my book is really for Americans who don't agree with that, especially the idea of a communist one-party state that's half state-owned, only half free market, and that has some pretty bad track records in human rights and the issues of pollution and things like that. It's not necessarily that China's so bad, but when they're triple our economy, we're not going to have much choice to reverse things. It'll be game over.
Well, we're not, while we have some successes when it comes to civil rights and human rights and pollution and things like that, we're certainly not a model. What are you suggesting America do to solve this problem?
We've got to enhance our own competitiveness. There's several ways of doing that. There's even maybe a dozen books about how to make America more competitive. But there's not a consensus in Washington. Everybody's so busy bickering that we haven't really started some of the basic things. One is tax reform. Another one is better terms of trade overseas. Even a bilateral investment treaty with China, where they would promise to treat our companies inside China as well as we do their companies inside America. Things like that just haven't been done.
Right. If they successfully pick winners and losers, and one of the criticisms of the Obama administration is that he was picking winners and losers, it seems like the federal government doesn't pick anybody and let the free market decide. That's been the way we were supposed to grow.
Yes, that's right. And the fact the Chinese do us a huge compliment. They looked back on our history in the 1800s when we did let our corporations grow. Very little regulation, very little interference, and they see that in some ways as a model for China. But when they pick winners and losers, I don't mean they pick one company. they will actually invite or force 5 to 10 small companies together to form a big company, whether it's steel or paint or auto parts, and then have that company export and take over market share internationally. When we call them on it, they say, well, this is what you Americans did back 100 years ago. And there's some truth to that.
Right. But how do these cities that rise literally out of the ashes, in which nobody lives, how is it good for the economy for them to build these giant cities in which no one's living in? I mean, that's a bubble that's going to burst.
Well, it is going to burst, but that's a teeny part of the Chinese economy. When a reporter goes out on a Chinese-led press trip and takes pictures and writes that up, that's what they want, to accentuate mistakes and disasters, while the real success story of the Chinese economy is very seldom covered.
Yeah. Would have been better if Richard Nixon just never went to China and opened it up?
No, but I think it's not true that we opened up China. They've now revealed that they actually opened up America. We turned down 5 initiatives from China from 69 to 71. Kissinger has revealed in his latest book on China. It was really very much their initiative. It wasn't America opening up China at all.
So you're saying Richard Nixon's legacy is one that he shouldn't get credit for opening up China?
Well, it takes two sides, but the Chinese have released a lot of documents now, and Kissinger has agreed with them in his book that they took the initiative and actually invited Nixon 3 times to come to China. Kissinger says at one point it was just too risky, so he did not reply.
Yeah.
So that's not the American initiative at all.
If they're so secretive, why are they now releasing all these documents telling us their deep, darkest secrets?
Well, in my book, The 100-Year Marathon, I'm trying to argue about the rise of the hawks, the rise of some nationalistic authors who have revealed some of these secrets in their books, things we did not know about Chinese strategy in the beginning.
The book is called The 100-Year Marathon, China's Secret Strategy to Replace America as the Global Superpower. Michael Pillsbury is our guest. Michael, thank you very much for the time. Good luck.
Thanks.
You got it. The 100